The Lost Record. The Galactic Archive was the most secure vault in the universe, holding the history of countless civilizations. It was built by the Grand Council of Elders, an ancient race that had watched over the galaxy for millions of years. Every known species had their records stored here, except one. That missing species was called humans. Eldrin, a Xelari historian, had spent his life searching for answers. He was one of the few scholars who questioned why the humans had no record. The council refused to speak of them, and any attempt to retrieve human history from the archives always ended in failure. It was as if someone had erased them from existence. One night, after years of research, Eldrin finally found a lead. Deep within a restricted section of the archive, he discovered an ancient data chip buried under layers of security codes. His heart raced. The chip was old, older than any known civilization still standing today. With trembling fingers, he inserted it into his datapad. The screen flickered. A hologram appeared, showing a group of human explorers standing on an alien world. Their ships were unlike anything Eldrin had ever seen. Rugged, battle-scarred, yet still functional. The humans in the image wore determined expressions, their eyes filled with an intensity that sent shivers down Eldrin's spine. A voice recording played. To anyone who finds this record, we were here. We walked among the stars. We fought. We built. We survived. But the galaxy was not ready for us. The recording ended abruptly, leaving only silence. Eldrin's mind raced. What had happened to these humans? Why was their existence hidden? Before he could think further, alarms blared. The archive security system had detected his unauthorized access. Heavy footsteps echoed through the halls. The council's enforcers were coming. Eldrin had only seconds to act. He copied the data and ejected the chip, hiding it within the folds of his robe. As the door burst open, armed guards stormed in, their weapons raised. "You have seen what was not meant to be seen," a cold voice declared. Eldrin did not resist. He knew that knowledge was more powerful than any prison. And now he held the truth, the lost record of humanity. The question remained, why was the galaxy so afraid of them? Eldrin sat in a cold, dimly lit interrogation room deep within the council's fortress. His hands were bound by energy cuffs, humming softly as they restricted his movement. Across from him stood High Inquisitor Valtor, a towering reptilian figure with piercing yellow eyes. His long, clawed fingers drummed against the metallic table. "You made a grave mistake, historian," Valtor said, his voice low and menacing. "There are things that must remain buried." Eldrin swallowed hard, but held his ground. Why? Why are the humans erased from history? The Inquisitor narrowed his eyes. For the good of the galaxy. Eldrin's mind raced. Every civilization, no matter how violent, had records in the archive. Even the cruel warlords of the Scifi Dominion had their history documented. But humans? Nothing. It made no sense, unless they were more dangerous than any species the galaxy had ever known. Valtor leaned forward. "I will ask only once. Where is the data chip?" Eldrin forced himself to remain calm. He had hidden the chip in a place where even the Inquisitor wouldn't look, inside the hollowed-out spine of an old book he carried. A relic, something most aliens found useless. "I don't have it," Eldrin said, meeting Valtor's gaze. The Inquisitor studied him for a moment before exhaling sharply. "You are a fool. Humans are not a story to be uncovered. They are a warning." He motioned to the guards. "Lock him away. Let him rot." As the guards dragged Eldrin toward his cell, his mind burned with one thought. What had humans done to make the galaxy fear them so much? And more importantly, were they still out there? Eldrin sat in the dimly lit prison cell, his mind racing. The walls around him were made of reinforced durasteel, designed to hold the most dangerous criminals in the galaxy. He wasn't a criminal, he was a historian. But in the eyes of the council, he had committed the greatest crime of all, searching for the truth about humans. The energy cuffs around his wrists pulsed, keeping his movements limited. His only comfort was that the ancient data chip remained hidden within his book, tucked away in the cell's small shelf. The guards had searched his clothes and even his data pad, but they never bothered with books. Books were considered obsolete, except to him. He stared at the ceiling, replaying the hologram in his mind. The human's words echoed. To anyone who finds this record, we were here. We walked among the stars. We fought. We built. We survived. But the galaxy was not ready for us. What did it mean? If humans had traveled the stars, why weren't they mentioned anywhere in galactic history? How could an entire species vanish without a trace? Footsteps approached. The heavy clang of boots against metal told him someone important was coming. A moment later, the door slid open, revealing High Inquisitor Valtor once again. "You have one chance, historian," Valtor said, stepping inside. His yellow eyes gleamed with cold authority. "Tell me where the data chip is, and perhaps I will let you live." Eldrin didn't answer. The Inquisitor sighed and motioned to the guards. "Leave us." The two armored soldiers hesitated, but after a sharp glare from Valtor, they obeyed. The door sealed shut behind them, leaving only the historian and the Inquisitor in the small cold room. Valtor studied Eldrin for a long moment before speaking. "You think you seek knowledge," he said, "but what you truly seek is destruction." Eldrin frowned. "Why?" "Because I want to know the truth." "Because you do not understand what humans are," Valtor said darkly. He crossed his arms. "What do you think happened to them?" Eldrin hesitated. "I don't know. But whatever it was, it must have been the Council's doing. You erased them." The Inquisitor let out a short, humorless laugh. "You believe the Council has the power to erase an entire species?" He shook his head. "No, we did not erase them. We survived them." Eldrin's blood ran cold. "You think the Zyphar warlords are terrifying? That the Dracon Imperium is ruthless? That the Kethari mind flayers are cruel?" Valtor leaned closer, his voice barely above a whisper. "Humans were worse. They were relentless. They were unstoppable." Eldrin stared at him. "That's impossible. No species is invincible." "No," the Inquisitor agreed. "Not invincible. Just different." Valtor paced slowly around the room. "Every species has limits. Physical, mental, emotional. There is a point where they break." He glanced at Eldrin. "But humans? They do not break." Eldrin frowned. "That doesn't make sense." Valtor sighed. "I once thought the same, but I have seen the records. Long before the Council, before the great empires, before the Archive itself, humans roamed the stars. They were explorers. But wherever they went, war followed. Not because they sought war, but because they never surrendered." Eldrin's mind raced. "So what happened to them?" The Inquisitor's face darkened. "We tried to stop them." Eldrin's breath caught in his throat. "It took the combined forces of 1,000 civilizations," Valtor continued. "An alliance that had never existed before and has never existed since. We pushed them back. We burned their worlds. We erased their history. And still, they would not die." Silence hung between them. "Then, where are they now?" Eldrin finally asked. Valtor's expression was unreadable. "We don't know." Eldrin's stomach twisted. "What do you mean you don't know?" The Inquisitor sighed. "They disappeared. One day, they were everywhere. The next, gone. No distress signals, no final battles, no traces of their colonies. It was as if they simply left." Eldrin shivered. "And you've spent centuries making sure no one remembers them." Valtor's gaze hardened. "Because if they return, historian, the galaxy will not survive them a second time." Eldrin's mind reeled. The greatest civilizations in history had banded together to defeat humanity, and they still hadn't won. The humans had vanished, but not because they lost. Because they chose to. and that terrified the council more than anything else. Suddenly, alarms blared through the prison halls. Valtor spun toward the door, his eyes narrowing. The sound of weapons fire echoed through the corridors. Eldrin's heart pounded. Something was happening. Something big. The Inquisitor activated his wrist communicator. Report. Static. Then, containment breach. Unknown forces. The transmission cut off in a burst of static. Valtor cursed and turned back to Eldrin. Stay here. But before he could leave, the door exploded. A shockwave threw Valtor across the room, slamming him into the wall. Dust and fire filled the air as figures stepped through the smoke. They wore armor unlike anything Eldrin had ever seen, sleek, efficient, battle-worn. Their visors glowed red in the darkness. They moved with a precision that no alien army had ever matched. One of them stepped forward, scanning the room. His helmet retracted, revealing a scared human face. Eldrin's breath caught in his throat. The humans had returned. The soldiers' piercing blue eyes locked onto Eldrin. Historian Eldrin. Eldrin could barely nod. The man tossed something onto the table. It was a data chip, identical to the one Eldrin had hidden. Looks like you found what we left behind, the soldier said with a smirk. Now it's time for you to see what comes next. Outside, the alarms continued to blare. The galaxy was about to learn the truth. The lost children of Earth had never disappeared. They had only been waiting. The room fell silent after the human soldier's words. Eldrin couldn't believe his eyes. It was as if the entire galaxy had just shifted beneath his feet. After centuries of hiding, the humans had returned, and with them, an unsettling energy seemed to fill the air. The soldier, still standing before Eldrin, studied him with an expression of quiet amusement, as if they were meeting for the first time in a long time. You must have a lot of questions, the soldier said, his voice calm, but there was a sharpness to it. And you will get your answers, but first, we need to move. Eldrin stood frozen, unable to find his voice. The thought that the humans, the lost species, the forgotten warriors, were here in front of him, in the heart of the Council's fortress, was almost too much to comprehend. But how? Eldrin finally asked, his voice hoarse. I thought you were gone. The soldier smiled grimly. We never left, historian. We've been waiting. He reached into a compartment on his armor and pulled out a small device. And now that you know, it's time to wake the galaxy up. The human pressed a button on the device, and a holographic map materialized in the air. Eldrin could see dozens of locations scattered across the galaxy. Hidden planets, forgotten outposts, and ancient structures. Those are the places where we've been, the soldier continued. Where we've watched and waited. And we're not alone. The human paused for a moment, eyes scanning the map as if making sure the message was clear. Eldrin had no words. This wasn't just a group of humans. It was an entire network. A civilization had been hiding, observing, and preparing to strike when the galaxy was least ready for it. The soldier turned to Eldrin, his expression softening slightly. We've been watching, historian. And now we need your help. Eldrin's brow furrowed. Help? You want me to help you? After everything that's happened? The soldier nodded. You're the one who found the records. You've seen the truth, and you know what that means. The galaxy is a powder keg, and the Council's lie is the match. We need to light the fuse. Eldrin shook his head, still processing the gravity of the situation. You've been in hiding for centuries. You've been wiped from history, and you want to. Expose yourselves now. The human's eyes narrowed. We never disappeared, historian. We were hunted. And now we've come back to finish what we started. Before Eldrin could respond, the soldier's comm device beeped. He glanced at it and then turned back to Eldrin, his expression hardening. We've been compromised. The Council knows we're here, the soldier said. It's too late to hide now. They'll be coming for us. Eldrin's heart raced. The room was suddenly thick with tension. It was no longer just about humanity's lost history. It was about survival. The soldier turned toward his team. "Get ready. We're moving out." Without another word, the humans moved swiftly, efficiently, their every motion calculated. Eldrin was left to stand there, unsure of what to do, his mind still reeling. What had he just become part of? "Come on," the soldier called, noticing Eldrin's hesitation. "We don't have time." Eldrin's feet finally obeyed. The sudden realization hit him. He was no longer a historian. He was part of something much bigger now. As they moved through the fortress, Eldrin saw the chaos unfolding around them. The alarms continued blaring, and the sounds of gunfire echoed in the hallways. The humans were making their way toward the main control center, and it was clear they had no intention of leaving quietly. Eldrin followed them, his heart pounding in his chest. The magnitude of what was happening was only beginning to sink in. They reached a large chamber where a small group of soldiers waited. It was clear that they had been prepared for this moment. Their faces were grim, but there was a sense of purpose in their eyes that Eldrin had never seen in any other species. The soldier who had spoken to Eldrin earlier stepped forward, addressing the group. "Council forces are closing in on our position," he said, his voice calm despite the urgency. "But we're not running this time. We're going to show the galaxy what they've been hiding." One of the soldiers nodded. "We'll breach the main control center, shut down their security, and send the message out to the entire galaxy. No more hiding." The plan was simple, but the stakes were higher than Eldrin had ever imagined. This was no longer a small operation. It was the beginning of something massive. Eldrin took a step forward. "What message?" The soldier looked at him, his expression unwavering. "The truth. The galaxy has been lied to. The humans were never defeated. They were silenced. And now, they'll know the truth." Eldrin's heart raced as he processed the words. The message was bigger than he had anticipated. This wasn't just about bringing back a lost species. It was about shifting the balance of power in the entire galaxy. "What happens after?" Eldrin asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The soldier met his gaze. "After, the galaxy will change. Forever." They moved swiftly, making their way through the halls of the Council's fortress with military precision. Eldrin could feel the weight of what was about to happen pressing on his chest. Every step brought them closer to the control center, but every step also brought them closer to a confrontation that could shatter everything. As they approached the control room, the sounds of battle grew louder. The Council's forces had mobilized quickly. Their elite guards were everywhere, heavily armed and well-trained, but they were no match for the humans who had spent centuries preparing for this day. The soldier in charge motioned for Eldrin to stay back as he and his team moved to breach the door. "Stay out of the line of fire," the soldier instructed. "Once we get the signal, you'll have a window to send the message." Eldrin nodded, but his mind was elsewhere. He had spent his life searching for the truth, and now he was standing at the edge of it. The truth wasn't just buried in records. It was buried in the very structure of the galaxy. A series of explosions rang out as the door was blasted open. The Council forces inside were caught off guard. The humans moved in swiftly, taking control of the room with cold efficiency. The Council guards fought back, but they were outmatched. Eldrin watched in awe as the soldiers worked together, coordinating their movements as if they had been fighting side by side for centuries. There was no hesitation, no second-guessing. And then the soldier who had first approached Eldrin turned to him. "It's your turn." Eldrin stepped forward, moving toward the main console. His hand shook slightly as he interfaced with the system, sending a signal to every corner of the galaxy. The screen flickered, and then the message appeared in bold, bright letters. "Humans were here. Humans still are. The HFY is in silence eat. The truth is coming." Eldrin's breath caught in his throat. He had done it. The message had gone out. The galaxy would know the truth. He turned back to the soldier, who was watching him intently. "It's done," Eldrin said. The soldier nodded. "Now, we wait." But Eldrin knew that the galaxy wouldn't wait for long. The storm had been unleashed, and there was no turning back. The moment the message was sent, a ripple of silence spread across the control room. Even the human soldiers, so focused on their mission, seemed to pause for just a second. It was done. The truth had been released. Then, reality crashed back in. "Contacts incoming," one of the human soldiers shouted. His voice was urgent but controlled. "Multiple hostiles converging on our position. We need to move, now." Eldrin barely had time to process what was happening before the human leader grabbed his arm and pulled him toward the exit. The council would respond with force. He knew that, but the weight of what had just happened still hung in his mind. The truth was out. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy would know that humanity had never truly vanished. But what would they do with that knowledge? As they moved swiftly through the corridors of the council fortress, the sounds of alarms and distant gunfire filled the air. The council forces were mobilizing faster than expected. The humans had planned for resistance, but it was clear that the enemy was already adjusting. "We need an extraction point," the leader said, his voice steady despite the chaos. One of the soldiers tapped a device on their wrist. "Our ship's on standby, but the landing zone is hot. We'll have to fight our way through." Eldrin swallowed hard. He wasn't a soldier. He had spent his life in libraries, digging through ancient records, but now he was caught in the middle of a battle that would change the course of history. The group turned a corner and came face to face with a squad of council soldiers. For a brief second, there was stillness, a moment of hesitation. Then the fighting began. The humans moved like a well-oiled machine. They were outnumbered, but it didn't matter. Their weapons were precise, their movements sharp. The council soldiers never stood a chance. Within seconds, the hall was clear, the enemy neutralized. Eldrin forced himself to breathe. The efficiency of the humans was terrifying, and yet he felt a strange sense of relief. For once, the council wasn't in control. "Let's keep moving," the leader said, stepping over the fallen soldiers without a second glance. Eldrin followed, his mind racing. If the council had lied about humanity, what else had they lied about? As they neared the extraction point, a sudden explosion rocked the building. The walls trembled, and a massive shockwave sent Eldrin stumbling. Smoke and dust filled the air. "They're collapsing the corridors," one of the soldiers said, gritting their teeth. "They're trying to trap us inside." The leader cursed under his breath. "We need an alternate route." One of the humans pulled up a holographic map. "There's an access tunnel leading to the exterior. If we move fast, we can still make it." "Then let's go," the leader said. They turned down a side passage. The walls cracked from the explosion. Every step felt heavier as Eldrin's mind struggled to keep up with the reality of the situation. The council wasn't just trying to stop the humans. They were trying to erase them. Again, Eldrin clenched his fists. He had spent his life searching for the truth. Now he was running alongside it. As they reached the tunnel, a voice crackled over the humans' communication devices. "This is the Vanguard. We see your location. Get to the exit. We'll cover you." The leader's expression hardened. "Understood. Moving now." The tunnel led to an open platform, where the human ship hovered just above the ground. The sleek, black design was unlike anything Eldrin had seen before. But before they could reach it, a new wave of council forces arrived. Eldrin felt his breath catch. There were too many. The leader turned to his soldiers. "Hold the line. Give the historian time to board." The soldiers moved without hesitation, taking up defensive positions. The battle erupted again. Eldrin's legs felt frozen. He wanted to run, but his body wouldn't listen. The leader turned back to him. "Eldrin, go." Somehow he forced himself to move. The ship's ramp extended, and he sprinted toward it, his heart pounding. The sounds of battle echoed behind him. As he reached the top of the ramp, he turned, just in time to see the leader take a shot to the shoulder. Eldrin's breath hitched. The soldier stumbled but didn't fall. The others covered him as he pulled back, firing one last burst before leaping onto the ramp. The ship's doors sealed shut behind him. They had made it. Barely. Inside the ship, the air was thick with tension. The leader clutched his wounded shoulder, but his expression remained unreadable. Eldrin sat down, his mind still spinning. Everything had changed. The humans were back. The galaxy knew the truth. And now, the real war was about to begin. The ship's engines hummed steadily as they made their way through the galaxy's vast expanse. The hum was soothing, yet Eldrin couldn't shake the knot of unease in his stomach. His mind was racing, replaying every moment of the chaos that had unfolded at the Council's fortress. Humanity's return was no longer a secret. The message had been broadcasted across the galaxy, and there was no turning back now. Eldrin stood by a large viewport, watching the stars streak by in the distance. He had been a historian. His life had been dedicated to uncovering the past. But this was beyond anything he had ever studied. Don't overthink it. The leader's voice cut through his thoughts. Eldrin turned to find the soldier who had led the team standing in the doorway. His posture relaxed despite the weight of the situation. "We've done what we came for. Now we prepare for the aftermath." Eldrin nodded, though he didn't feel reassured. "The Council won't take this lying down. They'll come after us." "They will," the leader agreed, his voice serious. "And they'll try to destroy everything we've built. But we've got the truth now, and that's something they can't erase." Eldrin's gaze drifted to the crew working silently around him, preparing the ship for the inevitable conflicts ahead. He could feel the tension in the air. It was palpable, an unspoken understanding that the war for the future of the galaxy had just begun. The leader stepped closer. "I've seen it before," he said quietly. "The galaxy has been led to believe in a lie for so long that when the truth is revealed, they don't know what to do with it. The Council's grip on the galaxy is weakening, but they won't give it up easily." Eldrin knew he was right. The Council had spent centuries consolidating their power, manipulating histories, erasing entire species from memory. The revelation of humanity's survival would not only undermine their control, but threaten the very foundation of their rule. A sharp beeping from the ship's console interrupted his thoughts. The comm officer quickly tapped a series of buttons, and a holographic display appeared in the air. "This is the Vanguard," the officer said, his voice tense. "We've just received a report. The Council has mobilized. We're not the only ones aware of humanity's return." Eldrin's heart skipped a beat. Who else knows? The officer's fingers moved quickly across the controls. "The Syndicate. They've been working with the Council for years. They're already moving to intercept us." "Damn," the leader muttered under his breath. "The Syndicate's as ruthless as they come. If they've allied with the Council." He trailed off, shaking his head. "We need to prepare for a fight. They won't stop until they've silenced us again." The ship's lights flickered as the engine shifted into a higher gear. The captain's voice came over the intercom, calm but firm. "We're entering a new phase of the journey. Get to your stations. We'll be at the edge of Syndicate space in 5 hours." Hours later, the ship was alive with activity. Eldrin had found himself in the ship's command center, surrounded by the crew members who had come to see humanity's return not just as a victory, but as a challenge to be met head-on. Their preparation was meticulous, their resolve unwavering. The leader stood in the center of the room, addressing the crew. "The Syndicate may be well-organized and well-funded, but they're not invincible. Our mission is simple. We make sure they understand that humanity is back, and we won't be pushed around anymore." Eldrin felt a pang of admiration for the soldiers, for the humanity that had endured in silence for so long. They were fierce, dedicated, and relentless in their pursuit of justice. But there was something else, something deeper, driving them. "Prepare for anything," the leader continued. "We don't know how the Syndicate will respond, but we do know one thing. They'll underestimate us. Eldrin swallowed. But what if they don't? The leader met his gaze. Then we'll show them why they should have. The ship hurtled through space, the distant stars blurring into streaks of light. The tension among the crew was almost tangible. Everyone knew what was at stake. Humanity had returned, but now they were about to face the full weight of the galaxy's darkest powers. As they approached the edge of Syndicate space, the ship's sensors pinged. The captain's voice came through the intercom once more, stern and clipped. "We're not alone. They'd been waiting for us." The ship jolted as enemy fire struck its shields. The blast reverberated through the hull, sending a shudder through the entire crew. "They're not wasting any time," the leader said, his eyes narrowing. "Brace yourselves. This will be a fight." Eldrin's breath caught in his throat. The Syndicate ships had appeared from the shadows of space, sleek and deadly, their weapons aimed at the humans who had come to challenge their dominance. A series of explosions rocked the ship as the Syndicate opened fire. The human crew immediately went to work, countering with expert precision. Weapons fire filled the space around them as the two sides clashed in a deadly dance of survival. Eldrin held onto the nearest console, his mind racing. The battle had begun. On the bridge, the leader barked orders as the ship rocked under the weight of enemy fire. "Shields at 50%, one of the crew members shouted. "Return fire, full power to the weapons," the leader ordered. "We need to break through their defenses." Eldrin watched in awe as the humans fought back with precision and determination. Every shot, every maneuver was calculated, designed to overwhelm the Syndicate's forces, and yet, despite their skill, the Syndicate wasn't backing down. The battle raged on, and it was clear that the humans weren't just fighting for their survival. They were fighting for their future. "They're adapting," one of the officers said, eyes glued to the tactical display. "Their ships are shifting positions. We need to end this now," the leader muttered. "Eldrin, I need you to get to the comm station. We have to broadcast a message. Show the Syndicate that we're not just a few rebels. We're a force to be reckoned with." Eldrin hesitated for a moment, but then he nodded. He had been part of this fight from the very beginning. He couldn't stop now. He made his way to the communication station, his heart pounding in his chest. As the ship's systems flickered with incoming fire, he tapped into the main console and activated the broadcast system. The message that went out was clear, loud, and defiant. "Humanity has returned. We are the storm you cannot control. This is our galaxy now." The words reverberated through the comm channels, a declaration of war. And somewhere, deep in the heart of Syndicate space, the galaxy began to wake up. The broadcast echoed across the galaxy, sending shockwaves through every corner of Syndicate space. Eldrin stood by the comm station, his eyes locked on the flickering screen, his heart still racing from the tension of the battle. The Syndicate ships had been forced back for now, but the war was far from over. "Message sent," the comm officer reported, his voice tight with urgency. "The Syndicate will be reeling from this. They're not going to take it lightly." Eldrin nodded, though he could barely hear the officer's words. The reality of what they'd just done was sinking in. They had ignited a spark that would change everything. Humanity had returned to the galaxy, but they weren't just survivors. They were challengers, ready to take on the powers that had long ruled over them. He turned to the leader, who was watching the tactical display. The soldier's face was hard, but there was a spark in his eyes, a fire that was impossible to miss. "The Syndicate won't sit idle after this," the leader said, his voice calm but resolute. "We've made our move, and now the rest of the galaxy will see what humanity is capable of." Eldrin had seen this before, in history books and ancient texts. Societies at the brink of change, where everything was uncertain, and the stakes were impossibly high. Humanity had always been on the edge of extinction, yet every time, they had fought back. And now, it was happening again. The ship continued its journey through space, the crew working tirelessly to keep the ship operational and prepared for what was coming. The Syndicate would retaliate, of that Eldrin was certain. But the humans weren't backing down. They had taken the first step, and they were committed to seeing it through. Days passed in a blur of battle plans and strategy. The human fleet had grown stronger, bolstered by the message they had sent. More ships joined their ranks, drawn to the cause. News of humanity's return spread like wildfire, stirring up unrest in every corner of the galaxy. In the midst of this, Eldrin found himself sitting alone in the ship's small library. The old, leather-bound records that had once been his only company now felt heavier than ever. The weight of history, of all that had been lost, pressed down on him. But now, humanity was writing a new chapter. It wasn't just about survival. It was about rewriting the narrative. He ran his fingers over the pages of one particularly old text, a chronicle of humanity's early wars. There had been times when it seemed like the human race wouldn't make it. There had been times when they fought against insurmountable odds, but they had never given up. They had always found a way. And now, they were fighting once more. The door to the library slid open, and the leader entered, his expression thoughtful. "Eldrin," he said, his voice quieter than usual. "I've been thinking about what comes next. The Syndicate might try to crush us with sheer force, but they'll make a mistake if they underestimate humanity's determination." Eldrin looked up from the ancient text, meeting the leader's gaze. "They're already underestimating us." The leader smiled, though it didn't quite reach his eyes. "Exactly. The galaxy's never seen anything like us. They'd been told that we were a species lost to time, but now they know the truth. They know what we're capable of." Eldrin stood, closing the book softly. "Then we must be prepared for their retaliation. This fight isn't over." "I know," the leader replied. "But we have something they don't. We have the strength of our history, the legacy of those who fought for our survival. We have humanity's willpower." The two of them stood in silence for a moment, the weight of their words sinking in. Eldrin could feel it now. This was more than just a battle for survival. It was a fight for the future, for the right to determine humanity's place in the galaxy. As they walked toward the command center, Eldrin felt the shift in the air. The ship's crew had gathered, preparing for the next phase of the fight. Every soldier, every officer, every person aboard the ship knew what was at stake. "We have to win this," one of the officers said, a fire in her eyes. "The Syndicate, the Council, they've lied to us for too long. It's time to take back what's ours." The leader stepped forward, nodding firmly. "You're right. The Syndicate may have the numbers, but we have the heart, the courage, and the fire to fight. We've come too far to back down now." Eldrin looked around at the crew, the soldiers, the leaders. They were more than just warriors. They were the embodiment of humanity's unyielding spirit. No matter how dark the galaxy had become, no matter the odds stacked against them, they had found a way to fight. "The galaxy's about to learn," the leader continued, his voice strong, "that humanity's not just a relic of the past. We're the future, and we're going to take it." In the days that followed, the humans struck at the heart of the Syndicate's power. The battles were fierce, the losses heavy, but the momentum was shifting. The Syndicate had underestimated humanity's capacity to fight, to adapt, and to persevere. Eldrin had been part of every mission, whether as an observer or as a strategist. He saw the way the humans moved, how they fought with an unmatched fury, how they rallied together when the stakes were highest. The Syndicate tried to push back, sending waves of ships to overwhelm the humans. But each time, the humans adapted. They outsmarted the enemy. They outlasted the enemy. And with each victory, they grew stronger, their numbers swelling as more allies joined their cause. In the end, it wasn't just about force. It was about conviction. And humanity had it in spades. One final battle was all it took to break the Syndicate's hold on the galaxy. The fight had been brutal, but it was clear. The Syndicate had lost. As the last enemy ship was destroyed, the silence that followed was deafening. The crew, battle-worn but triumphant, gathered on the bridge, watching as the stars stretched out before them. "We've done it," the leader said, his voice filled with both relief and pride. Eldrin stood beside him, a quiet smile on his face. "We've done more than survive. We've claimed our place in the galaxy." The message had been clear from the start. Humanity wasn't just going to survive. They were going to thrive. They would reshape the galaxy, not through force alone, but through their unbreakable will to fight for what was right. Humanity's reign had begun.